Yah righteousness, Jerusalem, and the Holy See. God bless everybody. Peace to our national and international audience. Hope everybody is in greatest health as possible and focused in on all this nonsense that's going on, one right after another. This is March the 2nd, 2022. The 14th and the 15th of this month, recognition of Purim. Next month, April, recognition of Passover, Feast of Unleavened Bread. But this month, 14th, 15th, recognition of Purim. Again, everybody sees this Ukraine situation, Russia, and how, the West is trying to survive, save themselves from the collapse of the dollar, their monetary system. As some people say, when they start seeing their situation start to fall apart, they take you to war. So they have pushed Russia, as they've been pushing Russia now for the last 8 years or better, since they overthrew the president in Ukraine back in 2014, who was voted in by the people, and they put their puppet in, this Zelensky, who's an Edomite, a Jew, Edomite. And I say it like that because, again, you have so many people who don't really know who these Jews are. You know what I'm saying? Unless you know that these Jews are Edomites, you're never going to be able to come to the understanding on how they, how to attack them, how to bring them down in their dominion, because they've got the dominion now, as it was prophesied in Numbers chapter 24. Amalek, right? Amalekites. Some people pronounce it Amalek, but they have the dominion, and they've had it now for what I can see, a little over 100 years solid. But it's a diversified dominion, predicated on iron, right? Again, Genesis chapter 27, the sons of Esau were to get the dominion, and they would rule with the sword. In their stronghold, they worship the god of forces, the sword. What we see in Genesis 27, what Isaac told Esau when he put the blessing on him, he would live by his sword. So again, that's the iron, the fourth dominion of man, iron, and we see war constantly coming up through this fourth dominion of man. All of the CEADs, is the fourth dominion of man. And at the tail end of the BCEs, if you will, fourth dominion as well. Definitely during the time of Augustus Caesar, the little horn that popped up on the head of the fourth beast, Daniel chapter, chapter 7, and who would get rid of the 3 of the 10 previous horns, right? Pull them up by the roots. So, that's Octavian, Augustus Caesar, as we've spoken about in the past. So again, we know Octavian became in full power in 31 BCE after the Battle of Actium. So that's again the fourth dominion, and more likely than not, it started a little before that, again under Julius Caesar. But that's your legs of iron. Now we're in the feet and toes, part iron, part clay. And we're represented, when I say we, the descendants of Israel, are the clay that's represented in the feet and toes. Because now the seal is off the book as of 1896. And we've moved into the last stage of the four dominions of man. And again, the fourth dominion is the diverse dominion, chapter 7, Daniel. You've had different people who've had dominion at different times, sometimes simultaneous, many times simultaneously diversified. The illuminated Edomites diversified dominion. Okay, as we said in the past, you've got about 4 families that we can see: Oppenheimers, Warburg, Schiffs, Rothschilds, at the core of the Illuminati Edomites. So, here we are, right? I was asked yesterday by a person. We were talking. He said, "Well, aren't the Edomites controlling Russia?" And I said, "Very well, could be." I think pretty much he said the Rothschilds. And it very well could be that they've got a hand in it, a big hand in it. But that very well could be one of the other Illuminati families that basically controls Russia per se. Like Rothschilds control America and Britain and France, and got a big hand in a few other nations. Maybe they were the ultimate, the top rung of the Illuminati Edomite families. But you had other Edomite families, like I said, Warburgs, Schiffs, Oppenheimers, maybe some others, that had a big hand in aiding and abetting the Rothschilds. Possibly now again they've had their piece of the dominion, and now they're being recompensed again. You always are going to be recompensed from whatever you have done, whether it's good or evil. And so we know, those of us who are knowledgeable of Yah's word in this book of remembrance, Genesis through Malachi, that in these last days of the 4 dominions of man, Yah would take the cup of drunkenness out of the hand of those of the children of Israel, specifically descendants of Zion, Jerusalem. When Yah would bring forth the messenger, that seed of David, that's talked about, chapter 42, 49, 53, Yeshaya, and other places, right? Chapter 50, Yeshaya. 52, he would take the cup of drunkenness out of the hand of that seed of David, the messenger. But he would also take it out of those descendants of Jerusalem who sought him, who sought Yah, right? And sought him and stayed the course. Embraced the law with all our heart, all our soul. again, you know, that law is that's our wife, right? Malachi chapter 2, the wife of our covenant that we entered into with Yah, that we would obey his law with all our heart and soul. We would do what he said to do. The wife of our youth. So we are duty bound to keep the law. That's why we've been in the situation we've been in now over 2 millennia, right? Well over 2 millennia. And this is expressed at the back end of chapter 42, Yeshaya, Isaiah explicitly, is it not? And just while I, it's come to my mind, Yada was playing last week, 2018. I forgot the month. I forgot the month, but she was playing 2018. One of the might have been January, but I heard myself say it was 641 BCE when Tiglath-Pileser III took the 2.5 tribes up into the land of the Medes. But that's incorrect. Sometimes I misspeak. It was 741 BCE when Ahaz hired Tiglath-Pileser III, Pul, right? First Chronicles chapter 5. And Pul came, Tiglath-Pileser III, took the 2.5 tribes on the other side of the Jordan up into the land of the Medes, where they are, their descendants are to this day. Reuben, Gad, and half tribe of Manasseh. So it was 741 BCE. Just wanted to clear that up for all those who heard it and might have said, well, I thought he said 741 at another time. So that's why you got to read, you got to study, you got to pray, you got to do, right? Sometimes I misspeak. But again, we see this, Illuminati Edomite of the West going up against the Russian force of the Illuminati Edomite of the East. Now, it might be the same Edomites, right? Orchestrating this, as they have orchestrated wars coming up through time, pitting nations against one another, to weaken the nations and to discombobulate the masses of the people of the world. Because you've got many people. I talked to a Caucasian here the other week who's concerned about the nuclear war that possibly could break out. And you've got many people, whatever their nationality, right, afraid of what could break out from this Russian incursion into the Ukraine. But as I told him, and as I've told all of you before, Yah has told us, those of us who are knowledgeable of his word, as you see in the 42nd chapter of Yeshaya, he said before these things spring forth that he talks about, he's going to tell us of them, right? So we already have been informed that nuclear war cannot take place until Yah is established in Jerusalem. The temple built, the second gathering has taken place, because Yah is going to give everybody on the face of the earth that are acceptable in his sight a chance to choose between him and anything else. He wouldn't be righteous if he didn't do that before he brings forth this nuclear destruction. Quite naturally, again, Yah has said in that first chapter of Zephaniah, 5th and 6th verse, he's upset, he's angry because of those who have not inquired about him nor sought him. You know, because again, the clay in the feeding toes, part iron, part clay, in Daniel chapter 2, right? That's Israel. And we have a chance to awaken if we so desire, if we seek those things that rest with Yah, our righteousness the King, which we see in the first vision Daniel got, chapter 11, verse 36 to 12, 10 Daniel, right? We see it in chapter 12. Again, illuminated Edomite put that first vision at the back end of Daniel. But that's the first vision. Took the introduction away. We don't have it. But we do have, you know, what we have. And again, chapter 12, Daniel, right? Many shall awake. Doesn't say all. Talking about the children of Israel. Because we are the only ones that was put to sleep. You know, Yeshaya chapter 6. In that sense, I mean, where we couldn't awake during the time of the cutoff when the book was sealed, as it so states in chapter 12, Daniel. Even though you possibly through that 2.5 millennia and more cutoff, you had many that sought Yah, you know, that sought salvation, which rests with Yah, right? Sought peace, sought truth, sought equity, righteousness, right? And those things that rest with Yah. And as I was having a conversation with Jacob and Yahadassah over the last few weeks, I have no doubt that Yah took note of that. Those of us who sought that, just like today, even though the seal was on the book, you know, he still, you know, as it says in that 34th chapter of Psalms, as Jacob Yahadassah brought out to me, Yah is near the brokenhearted and the contrite spirit, right? You know, Psalm of David. You know, and Yah speaks about it again in 57th chapter, Yeshaya, right? To revive the spirit of the humble and the heart of the contrite. But when the seal was on the book, he could not be found because the book was sealed. It's time for the whipping. And an untold number of Israelites have died through the centuries, through those 2.5 millennia. Still dying to this day. I mean, just like this morning on Democracy Now! I mean, they talk about all of this Russia-Ukraine situation, right? And they, you know, the West has the propaganda machine going full blast. Russia's the bad guy. Putin is the Hitler and all that nonsense, right? Just like they did Saddam Hussein, Muammar Gaddafi, anybody that they, you know, who stands up against the West and their how can I put it, their intrusions, the West's intrusions in on other people's territories. The West want to be dominant and want to tell everybody on the earth what to do, right? So again, when we look at that one chapter of Bathsheba, right, we see what Yah says he was going to do to the descendants of Esau, right? All of them. He was going to take all the wisdom and understanding out of them. And he gives us basically a time when he would do this, right? Chapter 51, Yeshaya, where he so states that he would take talking about Jerusalem, Zion, right? Not all Israel, right? Those of us who have sought him out, those of us who, you know, have looked for Yah, right? And he says at the back end of, you know, chapter 51, Yeshaya, He's talking to Jerusalem. Awake, awake, verse 17. Stand up, O Jerusalem, which has drunk at the hand of Yah the cup of his fury. Thou hast drunken the dregs of the cup of trembling and wrung them out. And there is none to guide her among all the sons whom she hath brought forth, neither is there any that takes her by the hand of all the sons that she hath brought up. These two things are come unto thee. Who shall be sorry for thee? Desolation, ruination, right? And destruction and the famine and the sword. That's the curse, right? And Jerusalem, again, as I was saying to a person the other day, really recalcitrant and stiff-necked and idolatrous. I don't know why he calls me. This is about the third time he's called me in the last couple of years. It's a double curse on the descendants of Jerusalem. He's like, well, I hadn't seen that, so I directed him to YHWH chapter 16, right? It's also spoken in another spot that escapes me right now, but definitely in YHWH chapter 16, okay? But back here again, in verse 19, at the last part of 19, 51:19, Yeshaya, right? By whom shall I comfort thee? Thy sons have fainted, they lie at the head of all the streets as a wild bull in their net. They are full of the fury of Yah, the rebuke of thy strong one. Therefore hear now this, thou afflicted and drunken, but not with wine. Thus saith the Lord Yah, and thy strong one that pleased the cause of his people. Behold, I have taken out of thine hand the cup of trembling, even the dregs of the cup of my fury. Thou shalt no more drink it again, but I will put it into the hand of them that afflict thee, which have said to thy soul, bow down, that we may go over, and thou hast laid thy body as the ground and as the street to them that went over. Well, we know, as I've said in the past, that's the illuminated Edomites and many other Edomites, maybe that wasn't even illuminated per se, right? And other people as well, per se, right? Whatever their pigmentation, we were up under everybody, regardless of pigmentation. Again, we know that the propaganda machine of the Illuminati Edomite of the West definitely promulgates this black and white nonsense. Okay, we know the Edomites promulgated, right? This president that was put in power, put in the president's chair back then in 2014 by the West in the Ukraine, Zelensky, he's an Edomite, a Jew. Okay, I'm like, Yada told me this here the other week. I'm like, what? She said, yeah, he's an Edomite, And then I've since heard it, like, oh man, okay, right? But the West again put him in that president seat in the Ukraine back in 2014 when Obama was president. You have a lot of these Edomites that have other names, Russian names or Polish names or whatever, right? But they're Edomites, okay? Puppets of the Illuminati. And basically, just like on Democracy Now! Here this morning, if you get a chance, watch Democracy Now! This morning, March the 2nd. Listen closer, at how the Ukraine has been doing people of color over in the Ukraine, as far as how they've been dealing with them, right? And, dealing with them in this time of chaos, right? Destruction. They have a person of color, could very well be an Israelite, right? From one of the countries of the continent, so-called Africa, which is really Edom, talking about how they've been treated, people of color, okay, migrants, if you will, running from war, that, the Illuminati Edomite of the West basically creates all over the earth, running from the country, that they've started some, war in, running from bombs and bullets, and they've gone to Ukraine, and now, the Illuminati encroachment, okay, of the West on Ukraine, and very well could be the Illuminati of the East that controls the East. Um, we possibly could be seeing fracture, right? Again, diversity. Uh, because again, as we see in Daniel chapter 7, diversity is this fourth dominion's strength and weakness, right? Because you have to get recompense. Whatever you do, you've got to get recompense, whether it's good or evil, right? Uh, and we know that from the one chapter by you guys taking all the wisdom and understanding out of the mouth of Esau. And again, here in this back end of chapter 51, Yeshaya, Yah is telling us, when he's going to do it, when he takes the cup of drunkenness out of the hand, okay, of the descendants of Jerusalem that have sought him out, right? And again, we know that's the messenger, right? That's the time of the messenger, okay, who was to establish Yah our righteousness. Um, that's the government on his shoulders, right? Yeshaya chapter 9, verse 6. And then once the stone cut out without hands, which is the governor, the messenger, the seed of David, bringing the message of Yah about all this idolatry, right? And that Yah alone is the Most High. And once these monarchies, again, Yeshaya chapter 52, were sprinkled with the publication, as I've said in the past, that's when the stones started to hit the image of the four dominions of man, Daniel 2, in the feet and toes, part iron, part clay. And the image starts to crack up, crumble, to be totally destroyed, blown away till no parts of the four dominions of man remain in the earth. No parts. I say that like that because, again, this person that called here the other day, Sunday, like I said, he's called maybe two or three times in the past, the last couple of years. So, and he's in Colorado. I mean, he's, you got people like him. I mean, it's really, ludicrous how they, you've had conversations with them. They're caught up in this New Testament nonsense, right? They've heard Yah righteousness. Yah has brought them to Yah righteousness some kind of way, basically through the internet. However, whatever, they were on the internet or somebody told them about Yah righteousness and they looked it up and they've listened and they've heard what Yah has brought through, his movement, his arm, right? And then they don't, they want to quibble. They want to, be oppositional. Okay, so they call. Like I said, this person has called 2 or 3 times previous. And, pointed these things out to them. And you would think, you understand, just like Jeremiah chapter 19, right? Yah said it's never come to his mind, to have an offering made to him of a human body, right? He doesn't accept human sacrifice, right? Here, around the early part of the year, toward the end of last year, I was like praying. I was like, yeah, what have I missed? What am I wrong about? What am I confused about? Let me know. Bring it to me so I can clear it up, so I can understand, And he did that, right? Working through Yaakov and Yahadassah, his Isha. Because, again, Yahadassah's always had a problem with how I explain 53 Yeshaya, right? And about those of the middle passage, making their souls as an offering for sin. So, they called and over the last couple of months, month and a half, and we've been talking. And again, again, they made it plain to me, and and they sit down and peruse and examine together. I talk to YHWH more because Yaakov at work a lot of times. I only get to talk to him sometimes, Sabbath, Sunday, but it's times when he's at work. YHWH will call, we'll talk, and he comes in. He's at work. He can listen. Might not be able to actually, talk though, because he's at the job, but he's listening. So I talk mainly to her. She's very passionate and compassionate. But we talk about things, and they bring things to me, that are very significant. And then in these conversations, made it plain, where I could see that how I have been breaking down 53 is really incorrect in regards to taking souls offering for sin, the middle passage, because that was judgment. And Yah had, said to our forefathers what he would do. So it's no taking their souls as an offering, because they're human beings. He doesn't take human beings for offerings, right? When you go to the first chapter of Leviticus, right, he takes offerings only of the cattle, the herd, the flock. But as we go through Leviticus, we go through into Numbers, we see too that he'll take flour as an offering. He'll take an incense. We see Moshe. He told Moshe, to put the incense, in the censer and go in the midst of the people of Israel to stay the plague, right? Take the incense for an atonement for the people. So incense is an atonement, because once a year, in the Day of Atonement, the high priest, puts the incense on the altar of incense once a year only, right, for the iniquity of Israel over the course of that year, right? We see that Yah takes gold, he takes silver, right, jewels as an offering, right? That's in Numbers, right? So, but he doesn't take a human body, okay? He does not take a human body. That right there destroys the concept of Jesus, Yeshua, Yahashua, whatever you want to call that nonsense, right, in the New Testament. And you point these things out, you know what I'm saying? Just like the New Testament, right? Like Solomon said, nothing new up under the sun, right? Yah doesn't change, Malachi 3:6. You point these things out, right? You point out how, in Daniel chapter 2, the 4 dominions of man, right? We know they're dominions, not kingdom. The kingdom is Yah's, always has, always will be. He allows, right, man to establish a dominion or dominions. As like I say, this, we've seen different dominions over, multiple dominions, as it is now in this fourth dominion of man, the last dominion of man. Again, this is what we see. The West, right, going against the East, going against Russia, going against China. We know China and Russia have an agreement. They're hooked together, right? And again, the West, the fiat currency is crumbling all across the West. Okay? So they did, the Western Illuminati Edomite is trying to cover this fiat collapse and blame it. First it was, brought out the pandemic to blame it on that, right? As we said here, over a year and a half ago, reason why supplies was backed up because people wasn't taking the shot. They weren't telling anybody that initially. Now that's out with the freedom convoys in Canada. You got one here. It's supposed to have been going to D.C. and getting there yesterday for this State of the Union address, but they didn't make it. But they're still supposed to be headed toward D.C. They didn't set up barriers again all throughout D.C., Washington, D.C., right, for this freedom convoy of truckers that's headed, to D.C., like it was up in Ottawa, Ontario, up there in Canada. You understand? I know all of you more than likely heard about that. Well, you got freedom convoys in Australia and in Greece. You understand what I'm saying? Over in France, right? In other, what is it, New Zealand? You know what I'm saying? They got people have risen up across the earth, definitely in the West and over in the East too. I have no doubt. Definitely in the West, right? Where they're oppositional to the taking any kind of shot. Because they know these shots are deadly. Okay, they have been conceived of by the illuminated Edomite. Now, again, like I said earlier, this is possibly why so many people still don't understand who they're dealing with. They know, and a lot of people know it's the bankers, which they know the bankers are Jews. The Jews control the banking system. They control governments. They put in their puppets like this Zelensky in the Ukraine, Edomite, right? But they got puppets who are not Edomites, like Biden here in America, right? You understand what I'm saying? So, you know, uh, they have the dominion, right? But it's a diversified dominion. And now they have no wisdom and understanding. Brother asked me yesterday, he said, so you, he said, well, so, you know, did y'all take all the wisdom and understanding out of them at once? Or what? I said, well, when we look at the back end of this chapter 51, right, the cup of drunkenness, right? So we know when we start to drink, we take a drink, you know, 2 or 3 drinks out of the cup with alcohol in it, right? We don't get drunk immediately, right? But we keep drinking, we get drunk. He said, yeah. I said, so, you know, just like, you understand, when you are drunken, it takes a while to sober up. And he said, yeah. And I, you know, align that, you know, parallel that with YHWH chapter 28, when Yah is talking about, you know, how we come more and more into this illumination, right? Line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little, right? Sometimes we get snared, fall back, right? Or get snared in a situation we think a thing is right, but it's not. And then at some point, like y'all just did with me about, again, this chapter 53, right? You understand? Then you can see it for what it really is, right? And again, you know, for instance, this chapter 53, YHWH, we were talking here the other weekend, and just basically you know, I was talking with Cove Yahadassah, and you basically have to take out the 5th verse in chapter 53, YHWH, right? Now, the top part of that, you know what I'm saying, of verse 5, you can take out now that last line, and with his stripes we are healed. In a sense now, you know, you examine it for yourself, but we know that the messenger, chapter 42, YHWH, he comes in, you know, like it says in 53, YHWH, like you see in 49, YHWH, he's a root out of dry ground. Now, with his affliction and vexation, right, from being under the double curse that he has no knowledge of initially, he wants to bring relief to himself. He wants to stop his pain. So he gets to looking for relief. He gets to looking for salvation. He gets to looking for truth and peace and righteousness and equity, right? So you could say, you know, he's going to find that because Yah is going to eventually allow him to, you know, bring him to him. Because like Yah says in the 45th chapter of YHWH, right? He said, not to the seed of Jacob to seek him in vain. Okay, so now the messenger gets to looking for Yah, He doesn't know he's looking for Yah. He's looking for truth, right? And then looking for truth, he's looking for Yah. He's looking for peace. And looking for peace, he's looking for Yah. He's looking for equity. And looking for equity, he's looking for Yah, right? He's looking for salvation from up under this demonic oppressive system that he's under. He's looking for Yah, right? So he gets led to the Most High, and from being led to Yah, should I say, and then finding out who he is, right? He's an Israelite. His people are Israelites. Finding out about the curse, and then coming to find out about the strong one of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, the strong one of the whole earth. It's not but one. Just like I said with, this guy Sunday, you point these things out where it says I and me. You know what I mean? One. You point out like Deuteronomy 32:39, right? You see I and me. It's a creator. It's nobody with him. Okay, Exodus chapter 4, verse 22. The son, his firstborn son is Israel, a nation. All the nations are his sons, but Israel, he created to be the firstborn, right? Which is, Yah's Israel's inheritance, right? Because he created Israel to be the intercessor nation that he works through to reveal himself to the rest of the nations. You point these things out, and they still want to hold on to this nonsense. They get to talking all this nonsense like this person Sunday, right? And finally, I just had to tell him, look, my man, why you call me? Why you waste my time? Okay, with this nonsense. You know what I mean? Why do you waste your time? Go on and pursue what you pursuing. Leave me alone with the nonsense. Because you haven't learned a thing over these, 2 to 3 years. You haven't learned a thing. You haven't grown one iota. So why you waste my time? Talking the nonsense, talking this gibberish. Like the idolaters get to talking, when you bring them concrete things that they see in the book. They get to going off on these tangents, talking nonsense. So I had to just say, peace, my man. Hang up and then block his number. Don't waste my time with the nonsense, right? But we see with the servant, right? He finds out who he is. So now, as he turns to Yah and starts to turn, and find out eventually his name, right? And turn and with all his heart and soul, right? Now this opens the door for others to be healed. So in a sense, you can say, with his stripes we are healed. We can't get healed, let's say, right? Okay, when you look at verse 6 in chapter 53, Yeshaya, right? All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way. That's true. That's what our forefathers did. And that's basically the case pretty much today, right? But the last part of that, right? And Yah had laid on him the iniquity of us all. That's more the nonsense, right? Trying to bring in this JC nonsense, right? Okay, verse 7. He was oppressed, he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before his shearers is dumb, so he opened not his mouth. That's nonsense. You know what I mean? That's some more trying to bring in this JC concept. Because like one of the brothers in the Q&A here the other year, I think about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I think it was Othaniel, I can't remember, but the brother said, how can JC, when you look at the law of Yah and the offerings of Yah, again, Leviticus, chapter 1, the herd, the flock, the cattle, right? And he also will take fowl, right? But it has to be clean animals and fowl, right? Not unclean, right? But they have to be without blemish. Okay, well, in the story of JC, he was beaten, stabbed, and nailed, and thorns on it. I mean, he was abused. He was buked, right? I mean, come on. How's the Most High going to accept that? He was blemished to the fullest extent, right? So you point these things out to these idolaters, and they just blow right by it, or they get to talking that gibberish, talking that nonsense. You know what I mean? And you trying to make sense. You know what? You know what I mean? It's like when I listen to this rap music, I'm like, what? You know what I mean? My mind can't compute it. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, and verse 8, chapter 53, Yeshaya, right? Pay no attention to that sound. That's the refrigerator, you know. These things, you know, that they're making now. And what I hear is hard getting washing machines, refrigerators, any of that stuff. But that's the newest refrigerator we got, you know. And we got some older ones downstairs and upstairs. They never make that sound. Okay, but this is a new one, right? It's no more, maybe about 5 years old. So that's the kind of stuff they're making now and charging big money. Again, we're watching the collapse. You know what I'm saying? In every kind of way. And while I'm talking about it, I don't know if any of you heard, there's supposed to be a glass shortage. You know, I mentioned that some years back, how glass was becoming more and more scarce because of the sand that's needed to make glass. I just heard here the other week, it's a glass shortage. That's another reason why cars and things like that are not actually coming, you know, being made. And you know, just think of all the things that need glass. You know what I'm saying? They making them using plastic in a lot of this stuff. Like this new refrigerator we got, it's got a lot of plastic in it. Okay, but again, verse 8 in chapter 53, Shai, right? The first part, he was taken from prison and from judgment. That's nonsense, right? Now, who shall declare his generation? That's proper, because they didn't know when Yah was going to bring forth his messenger, right? This seed of David with the message, right? For he was cut out of the land of the living, for the transgression of my people was he stricken. Well, again, you know, that is the middle passage on into the day. We still see plenty of Israelites being killed. Just like I said earlier, you know, you listen to that Democracy Now! This morning, and generally, if you listen to Democracy Now!, it's almost every day when they're on at the headlines. You know, you'll hear Amy Goodman talking about it was Palestinians, the Edomites over in the land of Israel, was called Israel anyway, killed some Palestinians. 18, 16, 14, 10 children, you know, blew up their homes, destroyed their homes. Edomite settlers trying to take possession or taking possession of Palestinian Israelites' homes. Because again, the Palestinians are basically Israel. You know, that's who they are. And they're idolatrous, just like most of your Israelites throughout the earth are idolatrous, wearing their crosses and, you know, into their Islam and all kind of garbage. You know, you got some Israelites into Judaism and Buddhism and Hinduism. You know what I'm saying? That's why, you know, these things are happening to them. And, you know, we've put forth that message continuously through the years. All right? And all I can do is hope, as I do hope and pray, that all who are really seeking peace, truth, righteousness, harmony, you know, serenity, tranquility, prosperity, true prosperity, right? Seeking the true and living Creator, Yah will bring them to Yah righteousness so that they can hear these truths, okay, and get into this book of remembrance and see, you know, what the illuminated Edomite has tampered with in Yah's word, alleviating or adding, tampering, twisting, okay? But as Jacob and Hadassah have brought to me, when you apply the law to Yah's word, right, that reveals a lot of things that they've tampered with when you apply the law to it, right? And again, over here in chapter 53, Yeshaya, verse 10, right? See, again, yet it pleased Yah to bruise him, he hath put him to grief, when thou shalt make his soul an offering for sin. See, again, Yah does not take human sacrifice. So just blot out that part of verse 10 in chapter 53, Yeshaya, right? But this last part, he shall see his seed, he shall prolong his days, and the pleasure of Yah shall prosper in his hand. That's problem. And the rest of 53, that's problem. That's talking about the seed of David. Okay? And again, when you apply the law, Yah does not take human sacrifice. Just like we see over in the book of Judges. You understand? Esau has put in there that Jephthah. You know, he said the first thing came out to him, he would offer to Yah. So his daughter came out. So they you know, he offered his daughter. That's nonsense. You can't offer your child or human being to Yah. It's unacceptable. Again, Jeremiah chapter 19. What does Yah say? It never came into my mind to take human, offerings. Okay? Again, Malachi 3:6. Yah does not change. Okay? He doesn't change. So, these things we can see when we apply the law to it, right? It lets us see what has been tampered with, right? But like I said, going back there, to Melchizedek in chapter 15, Genesis, right? They got him being, this is a mythical character, this Melchizedek, right? Got him being king and priest. You can't combine those two things, right? And they didn't even exist back then. You know what I'm saying? In regards to Israel, Israel didn't even exist at that point, right? Talking about the time of Abraham. See? But this is the illuminated Edomite started trying to shape and form our minds, interject this poison, these lies and deception to have us confused, right? And he's just making it more apparent Yah is. Because like I said, about the latter part of 2021, early part of this year, 2022, I was praying to Yah, show me what I've missed, what I've got incorrect, what I don't have right. See, because again, you cannot be where you refuse to acknowledge when you're wrong about something. Okay? And when things are brought to me, I don't care who brings them, you know what I'm saying? I look at it, right? And examine it. Sometimes it don't take long at all to see the nonsense like this person's Sunday, right? But then some things, you have to, examine. Like the brother yesterday, he's out there on the West Coast, been calling for years. And, now he calls. He used to be adversarial, but he's not that like that anymore. We have good conversations. And in my mind, from what I see, he's grown. And it's pleasant to see his growth, and hopefully I've grown. You know what I mean? That's what it's all about, right? But you can't grow if you don't acknowledge when you're wrong about something. Because then you become what? Prideful. And pride goes before a fall, right? Because again, it's not about us. This is about Yah. Ezekiel 36:22. So when we look at these things, and again, we look at the law, right? And we see the things that Yah has put forth in that law, which again, Malachi chapter 2, right? The wife of our youth, the wife of our covenant. Let me just read it. And right? What does it say? I'm going to pick this up at verse 10. I'm in chapter 2, Malachi, right? Have we not all one Father? Have not one strong one created us? Yeah, right? Why do we deal treacherously every man against his brother by profaning the covenant of our fathers. YHWH has dealt treacherously, and an abomination is committed in Israel and in Jerusalem. For YHWH has profaned the holiness of Yah, which he loved, and had married the daughter of a strange idol. Right? JC, Christianity, Islam, right? Hinduism, Buddhism, going all the way back to Baal, the present day Jesus. Jesus ain't nothing but a rehash of Baal, Baal, right? That our forefathers went into the past, right? Ashtaroth, Chemosh, Molech, all that garbage, right? See, and this is what, Yah is talking about through Malachi here, right? Verse 12, Yah will cut off the man that does this, the master and the scholar, out of the tabernacles of Israel, you call, right? And him that offers an offering unto Yah of hosts, right? Because you can't worship idols and images and then, say you're with Yah too. You understand that? You understand? That's committing fornication, adultery, right? We only got one Father. Yah is our husband. He says that he's our husband. So like we are like his wife, right? Israel. And now we're like a bride in waiting, like it says over in Yeshaya, chapter 62. Yah is our husband, right? And again, when we see that, right? What is the duty of a husband, right? And this is over in Exodus chapter 21, verse 10. Says, if a man takes him another wife, her food and her raiment and her duty of marriage shall he not diminish. So now you go back up to verse 9, right? That was verse 10. Said, if a man have betrothed, let me see. That's going in the maid servants and daughter to be a maid servant, right? But again, if Yah has brought him one wife, right? Okay. This is dealing with the manservant and the maid servants. But again, what does it say? If a man takes him another wife, he got one wife, but he takes him another wife, right? Her food, her raiment, and her duty of marriage shall he not diminish, right? So now when you look at it, because again, let me just go back up here in chapter 21, Exodus, right? It said, now these are the judgments which thou shalt set before them. Verse 1, right? If thou bind Hebrew servant 6 years, he shall serve. In the 7th, he shall go out free for nothing. If he came in by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he were married, then his wife shall go out with him. If his master have given him a wife, and she have borne him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go out by himself. If the servant shall plainly say, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out free, then his master shall bring him unto the judges. He shall also bring him to the door or unto the doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. Right? Okay, it says, and if a man sell his daughter to be a maid servant, she shall not go out as the men's servants do. If she please not her master, who hath betrothed her to himself, then shall he let her be redeemed. To sell her unto a strange nation, he shall have no power, seeing he hath dealt deceitfully with her. Right? And if he have betrothed her unto his son, he shall deal with her after the manner of daughters. Right? Because that's his son's wife. He can't deal with her, right? It says, and if he take him another wife, her food, her raiment, and her duty of marriage shall he not diminish, right? And if he do not these 3 things unto her, then she shall go out free without money. Okay. Now, this is, okay, if he sell his daughter to be a maid servant, she shall not go out as the men servants do. Okay? That's verse 7, chapter 21, right? Exodus. If she please not her master who hath betrothed her to himself, then shall he let her be redeemed. To sell her into a strange nation he shall have no power, seeing he hath dealt deceitfully with her. Okay? Now, this is if thou buy an Hebrew servant. Now, Hebrew, that includes what? All those other nations that are out of Abraham, right? That we see in Genesis 26. Those 6 sons by Keturah who became nations, right? That talking about the Edomites, right? Talking about the Ishmaelites, they all, right, out of Abraham, right? And again, Lot, you know, his 2 daughters, Moabites, Ammonites. You know, if you take a woman, right? Because we know the males can't come over into the dominion of Yah because they're a seed of incest, right? But we had Ruth. She was a woman. She don't carry the seed. She just got the egg, right? So, right? You understand? Hebrews, okay? Now you got the law of the man, but again they got the law of the woman if you take it to wife, right? Because she's a Hebrew, okay? Descendant out of Abraham. So again, you know, if you get a Hebrew maiden, right, and you take her to wife, and you've already got another wife, right? The first wife, her food, her raiment, her duty of marriage, shall he not diminish, right? Because she's got a certain duty of marriage, right? And so you provide her what you provide to her, right? Now her duty of marriage shall not diminish, you know. So again, you know, we go over into these, you know, situation with the wife, right? We know it's a law of 2 wives, as I said in the last session, because I've talked about that over the course of this past month. And, you know, things been brought into question, right? But again, I'm going back into this Malachi, right? And the wife of our youth, which again is the covenant, right? I'm gonna pick this back up again at verse 13, because I ended up at verse 12, right? In Malachi chapter 2. And this have ye done again, covering the altar of Yah with tears, with weeping, with crying out, insomuch that ye regards not the offering anymore, or receives it with goodwill at your hand. You know what I mean? If you know, in your heart, you really don't want to give Yah an offering, it's not acceptable anyway, right? But you should be giving Yah, you know, the best of whatever he gives you. I mean, and then now we can't actually per se do that because there's no temple, there's no priesthood, there's no Levites. We don't know, we don't have that yet, right? So again, right? But again, you've got plenty of us who don't want to submit to the law and obey all of this law that Yah has laid down. You know, they want to keep eating something that's unclean. They want to keep wearing something that's diverse and not correct, right? They want to keep using perverseness and profaneness, which again, you know, Solomon, the wise man ever put perverseness, profaneness, profane lives far from us, right? You know, we can't be deceitful. We can't be liars, right? And that's over in Sophia, right? Chapter 3, right? Uh, Now I'm going to pick this back up in verse 14 in chapter 2 Malachi. Yet you say, wherefore? Because Yah hath been witness between us and the wife of our youth, against whom thou hast dealt treacherously. Yet is she thy companion and the wife of thy covenant, which again is our forefathers said that they entered into a covenant with Yah, right? When he spoke to them out of the midst of the fire, right? That they went to Moshe and said, whatever Yah says to do, we will do. That's the wife of our youth, right? So in that regard, that covenant, we are the husband as a nation. And that covenant that we made in keeping Yah's laws, statutes, ordinances, judgments, commandments, and precepts is our wife. So now when we look at this here, right, see, again, we can't take another wife here, right? Not in the place of the law, right? That law is the light. Proverbs chapter 6. That's the light, right? So I just read up at top, early in chapter 2 where, Malachi, where our forefathers married themselves to the daughter of a strange idol, right? And started going into, another wife, so to speak, fornication with another wife, right? Of idolatry, right? We can't do that, right? We entered into a covenant with Yah, the wife of our youth. So we can't take another wife without repercussions and consequences that we should be able to see to this day. I mean, when we go back to Yeshaya chapter 42, what did Yah say there? I'll read it to you, right? This is Yeshaya chapter 42, right? I'll pick it up in verse 22. But this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes, and they are hid in prison houses. Well, we know that's big time today around the world with Israel locked up. Definitely here in America and other places too, right? Over in the land, plenty of our Palestinian brothers are locked up, right? They are for a prey, and none delivers, for a spoil, and none says restore. Who among you will give ear to this? Who will hearken and hear for the time to come? Verse 24, chapter 42, Yeshaya, right? Who gave you cold for a spoil? That's the nation of Israel. And Israel, the land, to the robbers. Did not Yah, he against whom we have sinned? For they would not walk in his ways, neither were they obedient unto his law, because they went into fornication, right, with another wife, right, an idol and image, the daughter of a strange idol. Took on another wife, right, and put away, and turned our back to the wife of our youth, which is the law of Yah, that we entered in the covenant and said we would do whatever Yah said to do. We would do that, right? And again, Proverbs chapter 6, the law is light. We're commanded, which is the lamp that holds that light, to obey it, right? And that's what Moshe said to our forefathers in Deuteronomy. Yah told him, he said, give them the law one more time before they go over to the land of Canaan. Now what Moshe said, this is, I lay before you life and death, blessing and cursing. So choose life, and you and your seed may live, that your days may be prolonged on this earth, on this land, that Yah thy strong one giveth thee. So Israel turned their back, as I just read to you at the back end of chapter 42, Yeshaya, right? And entered into a covenant, as it says in Malachi chapter 2, right? With a strange idol. Took on another wife, right? And we see here, over here in Exodus, again, you understand what I mean? Yah's judgment, if you take on another wife, her food, her raiment, and her duty of marriage shall he not diminish. Well, again, uh, you know, what is that woman's duty of marriage that shall not diminish? Because you can't take on, if you're about Yah, which again, the wife of our youth, the wife of the covenant that our forefathers entered in with Yah, that we're bound to, as we see what Moshe, what Yah said through Moshe to the children of Israel back then. This is a covenant not only with you here today, but with your children to come forever in the future. They're bound to obey this law as well. Those who are here and those who are not here yet, but those to come. Right? This is why Israel, wherever we are, we still, we're not in harmony with the law. We're still getting whipped by this curse. And if you're a descendant of Jerusalem, double curse. This is why the so-called Palestinians who are descendants of Israel, as we see in Hosea 9:13, right? They're delivering their children up to the murderer, the Edomites, the hypocrites, the Jews. And again, you got many Israelites confused, think they're Jews. And they are not. They're Israelites. You see the confusion, right? Right now, it tells us, right? We got the law of 2 wives. I said that last session. But we don't have a law of 3, 4, 5, and 6 wives. But we got the law of 2. And I just expressed it again here, read it to you, where it says if a man takes another wife, the law, the duty that he's been, uh, dealing with the first wife, right? If he takes another, he can't diminish that what he's been doing for the first wife. Now, these are actually human beings. We can't take on another wife in regards to the law at all. You either about the law of Yah with all your heart and soul, right? Deuteronomy 30 verse 2, or you're not. And this is where many Israelites are duplicitous today, just like our forefathers were, in ancient times. I just read it to you in Malachi chapter 2. They married themselves to the daughter of a strange idol, but still claiming they was about Yah, right? But they weren't, because we entered into a covenant with Yah to obey that law, which is our wife, as it so states here in Malachi 2, right? Yah is our husband, as he states in different places over in Yeshaya, right? He's our husband, and we're like his wife as a people, as it says in Ezekiel 16. But we left Yah and went and committed fornications with another man, idols and images. But Yah has said, we can return to him as a people, and he'll make our iniquity and wickedness, though they be like scarlet, right? He'll make them as white as snow, right? Again, Ezekiel 18, right? But again, many prophecies, right? Where Yah return unto him, right? But we have to return to him. We can't be duplicitous. which means if we return to Yah, we got to return to the law of Yah, to the wife of our youth. We can't be duplicitous in that. We can't have a second wife or a third wife in regards to that law, right? Because we've got a duty to keep that law. We got to love it and embrace it with all our heart. We got to cling to it. And in clinging to the law, which is one of the definitions of love, right? We got to care about it, but we got to love it. We got to cling to it with all our heart and soul. And in doing so, now, we're clinging to Yah. Because we got to love him. You know, I've avoided that word in the past. You know, but love is in the book. And it does, you know, even though love and caring have similar definitions when you get so far down, affection for, still you got a love that it says cling or cleave. And we see that, right, where it says that a man, you know, leaves his house and cleaves to his wife, clings to her. Now, you know, another person brought to me, we were talking, and I mentioned this in the past, not real long ago, right? Seemed like it would be the other way around, where the woman cleaves to her husband, right? Because she goes to live with her husband. He don't go live with her. You follow what I'm saying? He's supposed to provide the shelter and the victuals, right? And the clothing. But it's talking about in heart and soul, right? Now, you know, it's been this conversation, you know, about what happened with David. And again, what we see in the book about the law of two wives, right? And we see that it says in the law, right, that a man, you know, the governor, right, he shall not multiply wives unto himself. Let me, because we've been having conversations about that. And, you know, it's women who definitely love that about men not having, you know, multiple wives. I mean, I've been exploring that, right? Because again, you know, a man that has, you know, multiple wives, right? We know wives can be in our, you know, they're human beings, right? And they can be a distraction. They're not right. And we see at different times, like in chapter 19, Exodus, right? When they were to come before Yah, and they entered into this covenant with Yah to keep his law, to do everything he said to do, right? They were told not to come at their wives, right? Chapter 19, Exodus. You know, on the third day, during the 3-day cleansing period, you know, they were not to come at their wives, right? That's verse 15. Right? Because he said in verse 14, Moshe went down from the mount unto the people and sanctified the people, and they washed their clothes. And he said unto the people, be ready against the third day. Come not at your wives, right? Because we know if you, you know, have intercourse with your wife, then copulation, you both are going to be unclean until dark. You got to wash, then you're both unclean until dark, right? And we see that you've got, um, you got discrepancies. People have problems with this. You know what I'm saying? With these different laws, and they try to, you know, understand and they want to obey and they want to do the right thing, right? So, uh, you know, when it comes down to, you know, uh, obeying the law, right? You know, I mean, there are no equivocations, right? I mean, we're told to obey the law with all our heart and all our soul, correct? So now, when we get into these laws, right? And now it says the governor, right? They're going to say king, right? He was not to uh, multiply wives unto himself, correct? You know, he was not to multiply wives, nor horses, right? Nor silver and gold. This is what was said, right? He was to, now when it says not to multiply wives, I mean now, just how many wives is too many, right? What's considered multiplying wives, right? What's considered multiplying wives to oneself? Okay, I mean, because again, we in the book, right? Now, when we look at our progenitors, we look at Adam, one wife, right? Now, we don't know all what just happened in regard, because Esau's tampered with that, right? I've discussed it, and it's, called Yahadasa. They like, it seems like Adam was older than Eve. It very well could have been Eve didn't know the law, right? Explicitly. That's how she was able to be deceived. And what does it say in Exodus, not Exodus, but Ezekiel chapter 18, right? If you're ignorant of the law, right? You don't know, right? And if you turn and start to obey the law with all your heart and soul, then everything that you've done prior to that was against the law will be forgotten. Okay, so it sounds like Eve didn't really know the law. Might have knew something, didn't know everything. That's why she was able to be deceived, had intercourse with, the snake man, right? Man that became a snake. He was a snake in his actions. So now, because we can see it says Adam knew her again. So that's Eve, right? But it also says that once a woman's been defiled by another man, you can't go back to her again. Yah doesn't change. So now so what's the deal there? See what I'm saying? That sounds now it's contradictory. We see that same situation with David. Now, we said in the past that he had Michal brought back to him. Abner brought Michal back to him, right? But she had a husband, another man that she had, been hooked up with for so many years. And first said, I looked at it, David hadn't had no dealings with her. But as Jacob Yadasa pointed out, well, it does say Yah didn't give her a child. After she had come back to David, Yah didn't give her a child. She was barren. She had no children. So it sounds like the only way you can have children is to have intercourse. So it sounds like David was having intercourse with her again. At some, but she was defiled, right? And then, Yadasa coming from the woman's end pointed out that, when she was hooked up with David, initially, it was just her and David. That's correct. And it looked like they were bound in the heart, one another. She helped David get away from her father, right? Okay, so now, but when David comes, has her brought back to him, years has passed, he got like 6 wives now. And now, when Michal is brought back to him, it's not like it was the first time, where it was just him and her. Now he got like 6 other women. So she really not getting any time at all, right? And it's possible that she like, why you bring me back to this? You got these other wives. I'm not getting any time. I was with a man. You know what I mean? She's defiled, right? Why would David bring her back? And then he had intercourse with her. That's the way it looks, right? She ain't getting any time, and she's upset about it. And that I can understand that, right? And then that's why when they brought up the Ark of the Covenant, and again, David wasn't wearing an ephod. That's some more nonsense. That ephod is only for the high priest, not for David, right? And for the priest, not for David, right? The ephod is for the high priest. So, but he was dancing before the Ark of the Covenant as they were bringing it up, right? To Salem, because it wasn't Jerusalem yet, right? And she looked down and saw the maidens oogling David, and she brought that to him, right? And he was like, I'll be had by these women in honor. So now he's talking about taking on more wives. See? And it's like she despised him. She hated him. And again, from her perspective, the woman's perspective, she ain't getting any time. Now he got 6 wives when he brings her back. Now he going to take on more wives. She going to even get less time. See, because in actuality, David shouldn't have brought her back to him once she been with another man, right? That's the law. That's defiled ground, right? She cannot return to him once she's been with another man. So you see what I'm saying? So like David says in the 40th chapter Psalms, his sins were like the hair upon his head, right? His sins were like the hair upon his head for multitude, right? Because he had sinned greatly, right, against the Most High. Okay? I mean, he was not supposed to take Michal back, right? So again, she was defiled. So now he's got all these, wives. He took more wives. Now we see what happened in the case of Bathsheba. And according to the law, right, he was, this intercourse as we said before, right, when you go over there to 2 Samuel chapter 11, they've tampered with that. The Edomites, the illuminated Edomites writing this thing. He had to see her over a period of time. He knew about her. He had to be lusting after her. Okay? Because again, she looked like she was an upright woman, but a young woman, right? It's said that Uriah the Hittite, you know, and when you go to chapter 12, 2 Samuel, and what Yah said through Nathan to David, it was like Uriah had, you know, he had daughters, and he raised her like one of his daughters. You know, he had her in his house like one of his daughters, Bathsheba. So we can see that when David, you know, had intercourse with Bathsheba, and it looks like it looks like he must have raped her, right? Because we know Yah didn't kill her, right? Because again, you know, in the law, it so states if a woman, you know, has had intercourse with a man, right, and you know, and she was whether she was a bond, I mean, you know, whether she was betrothed or not betrothed, if she was just his wife, right? He's not supposed to, you know, if he took her, right? He's not supposed to. He committed an adultery, right? And you know, and she was betrothed, and she's out in the field, and he took her. Then she's not supposed to die, right? But if she's in the city and he takes her, she's supposed to holler out. Now, we know they weren't in the field, right? Because he had sent the army out. Chapter 11, 2 Samuel. He didn't sent the army out. He's supposed to lead them out, but he stayed back. That's how he got Uriah out the house. Now, it looks like Uriah had not possibly had intercourse with Bathsheba yet. Because according to the law, you know, you take a new wife, you're supposed to not go to battle. You're supposed to stay and cheer her up for 1 whole year. That's the law, right? So Uriah, we can see, was about Yah. And when David tried to get him to go down in his house 2 different times, he wouldn't. And we can see what he said to David. I'm fighting the battles of Yah. I can't go down to my house, lay with my wife, because now it's not actually expressed like this when he's talking, but that must have been the situation. I got to be with her. Yah can't go out to battle. So it looks like Uriah had actually had intercourse with Bathsheba yet, but she was his betrothed, right? And we see it says in the law, right? If the woman is betrothed, right, then the man is not, okay, I picked this up. It's in chapter 22. I'm in Deuteronomy, right? Pick this up at verse 23. If a damsel that is a virgin be betrothed unto a husband, and a man find her in the city and lie with her, then you shall bring them both out unto the gate of that city, and you shall stone them with stone, that they die. The damsel because she cried not, being in the city, and the man because he hath humbled his neighbor's wife. So thou shalt put away evil from among you. Now, we know they weren't in the field, but we know Yah didn't kill Bathsheba. So now what's the deal, right? Said, but if a man find a betrothed damsel in the field, and the man force her and lie with her, then the man only that lay with her shall die. We know they weren't in the field, right? But unto the damsel thou shalt do nothing. There is in the damsel no sin worthy of death, for it is when a man rises against his neighbor and slays him, even so is this matter. Okay, for he found her in the field, and the betrothed damsel cried, and there was none to save her. Right? This says, if a man find a damsel that is a virgin, which is not betrothed, and lay on hold on her, and lie with her, and they be found, then the man that lie with her shall give unto the damsel's father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he hath humbled her. He may not put her away all his days. Okay, so now is again, if a man have found a damsel that is a virgin which is not betrothed, so now possibly Bathsheba wasn't betrothed to Uriah. Maybe it was just talk that he was going to take her, because we know Bathsheba wasn't killed. Now, when we read what David did, it's expressly put forth that he had Uriah killed by the sword of these people who they were fighting against. Right? That's what Yah brought through the tongue in chapter 12, 2 Samuel. So we can see Yah put the sword, because point out in the past where it says supposedly Nathan, speaking in the word of Yah, said to David, but Yah has put away thy sin. Well, we know that's not true. Yah didn't put away his sin. He put the sword in David's house for the rest of his life. And David's blood was shed for what he had done to Uriah, right? Because blood has the answer for blood, right? The child died. Now, the way it's implied there, when the child died and David got up, washed himself, and said, bring me food, the servants was like, what's going on? They didn't know why this was, because this is like upside down what's happening here, right? Because again, as YHWH Yisrael pointed out, Yahudah's words are to be heard. David, the governor, Yah hears you, Deuteronomy chapter 33. Okay, so now, what is the deal with David and Bathsheba? Was Bathsheba really Uriah's betrothed? You understand? His wife and or betrothed? Because if that's the case, both of them supposed to die. Because it wasn't in the field, it was in the city. In Salem. Wasn't Jerusalem yet, in Salem. Okay, because I point out again to this guy Sunday, as I said to all of you, right? Jerusalem didn't become YHWH until 1 Chronicles 22, verse 1. Before that, it was Salem. Sometimes they call it Shalem. Sometimes they call it Sechem, right? Again, we go over there to Genesis, when Yah told Abraham to bring Isaac up and sacrifice him to him, they just say Moriah, or Moriah, which is Moriah, the Mount of Yah, which is Salem. You understand what I'm saying? This is, like YHWH Yisrael pointed out to me, generally when they got two different names for something or more, they trying to hide something. Just like you see Yahushua's name written about 3 different ways. Hosea, Yahushua, Joshua. They trying to hide what? Yahushua. Yahushua. Right? He who creates is my deliverer, my help, my salvation. Right? And you got these people believing in this mythology, right? This so-called entity named Jesus, Yahushua, Yahshua. Yahash, you understand what I mean? Why you worshiping that? You should be worshiping Yah. He's the help, the salvation, the deliverer. You see how crazy it is? You bring these out to people and they want to fight with it. Now, back here again to these, multiple wives, right? Again, it says that the governor, right, is not supposed to multiply wives to himself. Okay? I mean, we see that, right? He's not supposed to multiply wives to himself, right? That's the governor. Now, like I said, we see the law of 2 wives. So, how many wives is too many? Now, as YHWH Yisrael brought to me, right? And I can't deny it, right? When you look at the progenitors, like I say, Adam, 1 wife. And again, the only way we could come up with that is Eve must not knew the law. She younger than Adam, must not knew the law. That's how she was able to be deceived. That's why now, once she made this mistake, she wasn't killed, right? But again, Adam came back and had intercourse with her again, and Yah gave them a child. So now he knew the law, right? So now, what's the deal there? Follow what I'm saying? What's the deal there? I mean, because we can see that chapter 4 Genesis, right? Because it says, and it specifically says that Adam knew his wife again, right? And it say that at top of chapter 4, Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, right? And I've gotten, okay, well, we know that's been tampered with. Cain was the seed of the snake man, not Eve, right? We've talked about that in the past. So it's because we can see that Adam, he was 130 years old, right? Then Adam, Eve had Seth. That's the way it looks anyway, right? That, because it says it, because that's 4 where he knew his wife. But it says again, where is it? Verse 25 in chapter 4. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bare a son and called his name Seth, right? For Yah said, she hath appointed me another seed instead of Abel, whom Cain slew. And it says, and to Seth, to him also there was born a son, and he called his name Enos. And it was during Enos' time when they began to call on the name of Yah. That's the way it looks, right? Then began men to call upon the name of Yah, right? Evidently when Seth had Enos. So we know the book has been attacked, right? It's been attacked. Esau has discombobulated. He's attacked the book, trying to cut us off so we don't actually, it looks contradictory, right? So we don't understand just what a man is supposed to. Again, how many wives can a man have? Because here in chapter 17, Deuteronomy, right? And it says, I'm going to pick this up at verse 15, right? Matter of fact, let me go up to verse 14. And in chapter 17, Deuteronomy. And what does it say? When thou art come unto the land which Yah thy strong one giveth thee, and shall possess it, and shall dwell therein, and shall say, I will set a governor over me, like as all the nations that are round about. Now, we know they said king. That's the 1 Samuel 8 chapter, right? The people went and said, we want a king. They rejected Yah. Now, we know, in actuality, Yah had already talked about this. This is already put forth in Genesis chapter 49, right? And we see what Yah says in 1 Samuel chapter, was it 3? 2 or 3, when Yah says, he was going to raise up a righteous high priest, that would walk before his anointed forever, right? Which is in harmony again with Genesis 49, right? Where it talks about the scepter, right? Going to come back into YHWHudah, right? Where it will remain forever, because we know YHWHudah prevailed over the 3 other brothers, right? You know, firstborns before him, first, second, thirdborn. We know what happened. They knocked themselves out, right, of the birthright, and YHWHudah ended up prevailing, right? So again, we know what Yah has said, that he would raise up a righteous priest. He said that to Eli, right? that would walk before his anointed forever. I'm just looking for it. I know it's it's chapter 2, okay? When y'all is talking the talking to Eli. I think it's 2. Pretty sure it's 2, right? And Yah said he would raise up a righteous priest, right? That would walk before his anointed forever, which again, letting you know that Yah had in his mind, it's in harmony with Genesis 49, let you know that Yah had it in his mind that he was going to raise up a CEO or a governor, not a king. He's the king, is my point, right? But he would raise up a righteous priest that would walk before his anointed, right? Faithful priest. And here it is in chapter 2, verse 35. And I will raise up a faithful priest that shall do according to that which is in mine heart. This is 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 35. And I will raise up a faithful priest that shall do according to that which is in my heart and in my mind. And I will build him a sure house, and he shall walk before mine anointed forever. Now, the anointed there is the governor. Okay? So again, when we look, right, at Deuteronomy, you know, when we look at what Yah said over here in Deuteronomy, right, about the governor, right, and it's chapter 17, Deuteronomy, right, he says, so when thou art come to the land, which Yah thy strong giveth thee, and shall possess it, and shall dwell therein, and shall say, I will set a governor over me like his all the nation. We know they said a king, but Yah had in his mind eventually to bring him a governor, which he did, right? Thou shalt in any wise set one over you whom Yah thy strong one shall choose. And he chose, well, again, because of the, the law of the two wise, we see a different, Reuben got knocked out, right? Simeon and Levi got knocked out. YHWH prevailed. We see that, the firstborns of the two bondmaids, Zilpah and Bilhah, they knocked themselves out. They wasn't about Yah, right? Dan, Gad, right? The two children that the two bondmaids had in regards to Yaakov, right? And then we go back to Raquel. We see Yahosef had his time in Egypt. Yah gave him a dominion, a great dominion, in the sense that he was up under Pharaoh. But we know that, Yahosef was all about Yah, all his life. And Yah blessed him, right? That's when the Egyptians got big because of Yahosef and what Yah did through Yahosef in Egypt, right? And we see that, right? And we know that Yahosef, every step of the way, he was magnifying Yah. We don't see it in the book, but that's an understanding, right? Esau took it out and they translated the book. Okay, so now we see Benjamin got its time with Saul, right? We see Saul messed up. Now it goes to YHWH, and that's David. And Yah chose David, right? We know that, right? Again, what he said over in 1 Samuel, what he told, when Saul messed up with the Amalekites, not wiping them out, like Yah told him, then Yah told Samuel to go to Bethlehem, YHWH, because he got a man there, a man after his own heart, that was David. All right, so now I'm back here in Deuteronomy 17, right? And it says, Yah chose David, right? One from among thy brothers shall thou set as governor over thee. You mayest not set a stranger over thee, which is not thy brother, but he shall not multiply horses to himself. So today that'd be like vehicles, cars, SUV, you know what I mean, right? Or just horses, right? You don't multiply horses, right? Nor cause the people to return to Egypt. So you ain't never supposed to go back to Egypt, right? Which some have done, just he left here a few years ago, right? To the end that he should multiply horses, for as much as Yah has said unto you, you shall not henceforth return no more that way. So we ain't supposed to be going to Egypt for nothing, right? Neither shall he multiply wives to himself, that his heart turn not away. Neither shall he greatly multiply to himself silver and gold. All right, so now, what is too much? How many wives are too many? Like I say, we see the law of 2 wives, right? That's over here in Deuteronomy, right? We see the law of 2 wives, right? What's that? Chapter 21, verse 15, Deuteronomy. We see the law of 2 wives, right? Again, insofar as one hated, one beloved. Now, that's again intimates, can you have the same love for 2 wives, 3 wives, 4 wives? Can you love them all the same? Now, I had a person, I brought this to some over this past month or so, right? One guy told me you can love 2 women the same. He said he had 2 women in his past that he loved them both the same. That's what he told me. So I'm like, yeah, okay. He was hostile to the thought of, not having more than 2 wives. And he told me that. Now, I didn't go into it with him, but I mean, in my past, there was a time when I was dealing with 4 or 5 different women. Way back in my past. I wasn't about Yah, didn't know anything about Yah, didn't know I was Israel. Okay? They weren't about Yah, they didn't know anything. But, I liked all of them, but I liked one and had more feeling for one more than the other 3 or 4. Okay? And that's just the reality of it. Out of the other 3 or 4, a couple of them was real cool with me. The other 2 was just, something to do. You know what I mean? They wanted to be with me, but you know what I mean? It was cool. I didn't lie to them. I didn't deceive them. I didn't not care about them per se, right? But they weren't near my heart. Like one was out of them 4 or 5. It was one that really was closest to my heart. Okay? And you understand what I'm saying? So now, that's generally what we see in the book. Like when we look at the progenitors, and again, Jacob Yadasa brought this to me. And Yadasa, being a woman, real passionate, love her man, right? And he loves her, right? So she was bringing the woman's side. And, when they brought to me about the progenitors, you can't deny Abraham. He had 1 wife. We know the situation with Hagar. That was Sarai's man. That wasn't his man. When Sarai transitioned, then he had 1 wife, Keturah. Now, this person that told me he loved 2 women exactly the same, he pointed out over there in Genesis 26, where it said Abraham had concubines. And it says that. Okay? Now, again, we know that this term concubine is an insert, because a wife is a wife is a wife. You don't talk about no concubine. That's something Esau put in there, right? Okay. But we do see they got over here where Abraham, let's see, I'm pretty sure it's 26 because he pointed it out. Maybe it's not 26. Oh, here it is. 25, Genesis. See verse 6, and it says, but unto the sons of the concubines which Abraham had, Abraham gave gifts and sent them away from Isaac his son while he yet lived eastward unto the east country. Now he's pointing out that Abraham had women that we don't see in the book, that he had children by, sons by, right? That we don't see in the book. And I'm like saying to him, I tried to say he was, like I say, he was hostile. See, because my thing is, you got to examine all this, right? So, I do my best to be objective. But at the same time, as I've said to all you in the past, I'm not trying to convince, convert, reform, or recruit anybody. So when they hostile and don't want to discuss a thing, basically now I leave off. You follow what I'm saying? Because I see they got something in them where they being obstinate. They don't want to examine. So basically, and I haven't talked to him since. I mean, he called, but he ain't called me since. So I guess he's still hostile, but that's okay. But he pointed this out, right? About Abraham had concubines, and I did get a chance to say to him, I said, but we don't see them in the book, man. I mean, when you look at Genesis 15, I mean, as we see here, Yah would show us all of Abraham's sons, wouldn't he? Because these were to become nations. Isn't that what Yah said to Abraham in Genesis 15? So I look at this word here, I look at this line here, is tainted. Because we see Abraham with Ishmael. What did Yah say? I'm going to make a great nation out of him. 12 sons he going to beget, right? 12 tribes going to come out of him, right? Then we see, Isaac, right? And then Esau and Israel out of Isaac, right? And they had sons, right? We see that. Israel had 12 tribes came out of him, right? We see that, the nation of Israel. We go to Genesis 36, we see the sons that came out of Esau, right? But now we see these 6 sons that came out of Keturah. And again, when Sarah transitioned, Abraham, one wife, Keturah, right? One wife. See, because the person who's brought this to me about this line here in verse 6 in chapter 25 Genesis, he wanted to make Abraham had other wives we ain't seeing. And sons by them wives that we ain't seeing. I can't go for that. Okay? Because y'all definitely going to let us see about Abraham because of what he said about Abraham in Genesis 15. We got to be seeing these lines of Abraham. They can't be hid from us. Huh? You follow me? Now, unless Esau took him out of the book. But basically, we see Abraham with one wife, Sarah. Sarah gave him her bondmaid, Hagar. That was like he told her, that was your man, that wasn't mine. Right? When she got upset with Hagar, Hagar got out of place. Then, when Sarah transitioned, he had one wife, Keturah. That's what we see. Right? Okay, then we see Isaac, one wife, Rebecca, that's it. Right? We know the situation that happened with Jacob. He only had the desire for Raquel. Jacob and Hadassah pointed this out to me that, you understand, he was still living with Raquel even after Leah had bore him 4 sons, in the situation with the mandrakes. Right? Because I was thinking mandrakes were for easing a woman's menses. But Yadasa told me, he said, no, that's for fertility. She said she got some book in the house. You understand? They tell her, you understand, mandrakes aid and foment fertility in a woman. So this is what Raquel was trying to do. She's trying to get impregnated because, you understand, her bondmaid, Leah's bondmaid, they didn't have a son. Leah done had 4 sons already, and Raquel ain't had any. Right? Because the first son she had, them first 10 boys was already born. Were they not? Yahuseh was the 11th son. Right? So we know how that came about, though. Right? Because Yaakov lied and deceived his father. So he got lied and deceived for recompense. Right? You always get back what you put out, whether it's good or evil. He got recompense. 7 years later, he got lied and deceived. And he was given Leah. He didn't want Leah. He wanted Raquel. Then he exacerbated the situation, as we've talked about before, right? By taking Raquel, right? Breaking the law of 2 sibling sisters, which they were a vexation to one another because they compete. And when I say that, keep that in mind, that competitive stuff. All right? Because I'm going to go back to that in a minute, right? They was competing, and that's in the law. You don't take two sibling sisters. But he knew that, but he broke that. That's why, again, now he having the problems with these children. Huh? Now, like I say, Reuben didn't really have no real messed up in him when he was being conceived, because Leah got hope when she carried Reuben. But when she was carrying Simeon and Levi, she really depressed. And that's being brought down to them children when they in her womb being formed. Right? Them two concubines, Zilpah and Bilhah, Bilhah and Zilpah. Bilhah's concubine of Raquel, Zilpah's the concubine, not concubine, but bondmaid, right? Bilhah's the bondmaid to Raquel, and Zilpah's the bondmaid to Leah, right? Given to them by their father, right? So they bondmaids. And so now they competing, they giving them to Jacob. And he had 2 sons each by each one of them, correct? See what I'm saying? See? Then Leah had 2 more sons, right? You understand what I'm saying? Was that Zebulun and Issachar and Zebulun? See? So them 10 boys was born before Raquel had her first son, Yahuseh. And they was born under duress, chaos, acrimony. Basically, like I said, YHWH, before his inception, Jacob had to make amends. Okay? So again, Yehudah, Issachar, Zebulun wasn't born under that. But you understand, because again, that's why Leah named YHWH, Yah be praised, because evidently before the inception of YHWH, Jacob had acknowledged his wrong to himself, to Yah, and to the wives. And that's why Leah named YHWH, Yah be praised, because now she's finally getting embraced. But still we see, right, about the Mandrake situation, huh? You follow me? And this is before Issachar was born, right? Because he means Yah has given me my high, because now she didn't have Jacob to come in and live with her, because, to stay with her, because he basically living with Raquel, his heart's desire. And this is again pointed out to me, right? Yahdaza really pointed this out. You understand, when they was coming back, right? Because I'm thinking, because Raquel is pregnant with Benjamin, that's why he had her close. But Yahdaza thinking, the man gonna keep the woman that's closest to his heart closest to him. See, and he's like she said to me, if he had really cared about Leah like he still cared about Raquel, he'd had them both back there with him. He said the 2 concubines with their sons up in front, one boom boom, and then behind them was Leah and her 6 sons, and then back there with him was Raquel and Yahuseh. So I'm like, okay, you know what I mean? Because I'm getting the woman's perspective. See, because again, you understand, the woman, you understand, and again, when I've talked to some other brothers, got a wife, you understand what I mean? And these women, they loving to hear this, that one woman, one wife, right? Again, you understand, maybe a second one, but definitely, a plethora of wives, more than 2. A lot of them they don't even, and like Hadassah says to me, Yudah, the man has to get the agreement of the first wife if he gonna get a second wife. And I said, well, wouldn't, if a man is about Yah, the way I'm looking at it, right? Quite naturally, he's not gonna bring a woman in if he's got one wife that's about Yah. He's not gonna bring another wife in who ain't about Yah. And he's going to want them to be in harmony with one another. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I couldn't see a man who's about Yah and working for Yah and doing for, he going to bring a woman in, you understand, that's going to cause discombobulation, just even if she's about Yah, and he going to bring her into his house, and he got a wife already that's about Yah. Because now that's going to cause some, discombobulation. He ain't going to want that. Isn't that what we see? Moshe sent Zipporah back. I mean, Esau calling her Ethiopian. We didn't talk about that up there in Numbers. That's Zipporah. Wasn't no Ethiopian. Moshe had one wife, Zipporah. And we see this over there, right? When he sent her back, her and the two boys, to Jethro, her father. Why? Because, you understand, Israelite women, mainly his sister Miriam, which we see in Numbers 12, she causing problem, and she knows she probably got some other women causing problems. Because we see Aharon was with her over there in Numbers chapter 12, was with Miriam in opposition to Zipporah. See, because she was a Midianite. Now, so he sent her back. Rather than to have this drama going on when he's doing the work of Yah, he sent Zipporah back to her father with the two boys. Then when they came out of Egypt, right, when y'all brought them out of Egypt, then Jethro brought Zipporah and the two sons to him. We see that in Exodus, don't we? But it ain't long, right? We get over there to Numbers, this junk is going on, and Miriam's at the center of this. We didn't talk about that in the past. Moshe though had one wife. One wife. See, that's when we're talking about the progenitors. You can't deny this. Right? Now, when we look at Dawid, he got, like I say, when him and Michal was together initially, they had a bond. But now when he runs for his life, she helps him to get away from her father. Her father, out of spite, gives her to another man, and she goes and deals with him. Now, when Dawid, he got 6 wives. Now, when Abner, you understand, is talking about, you understand, he going to come over to Dawid, and he going to bring the other 10 tribes over to Dawid. And again, just for a point, sidebar, you know, we done talked about it, YHWH and myself, that's why Abner was killed. Because he ain't exalting Yah. He talking about he going to bring the 10 tribes over to Dawid. Yah wasn't in that. That's why, you know, Yah allowed Joab to kill him, but at the same time, Joab is committing murder. He wrong too. And another sidebar from this other conversation I had with some people, you understand, Joab, we see he did what? He went over to Adoniah, even though he done murdered 2 captains of the host, which he shouldn't have done. But he also went over to Adoniah when Dawid, 45 to 6 years earlier, told everybody that Yah had chosen Solomon to follow him up on the throne. We see Joab went over to Adoniah. So that's why Joab had to die. That's another conversation I had with some other people here the other month. You follow me? See? So again, you know, we see the situation with Dawid. He brings Michal back, and more than likely he had intercourse with her, but she defiled. Right? She defiled. Now, we can go back to Adam. We can see he had intercourse with Eve again. She defiled. She didn't have intercourse with the snake man, as if you're calling him, right? Right? But she defiled. See? So now does Ezekiel 18 come into play with Adam and Eve? She didn't really know the law. She younger. Adam's older. Is that the situation with Bathsheba? I don't see that, because Uriah was about the law. Right? Bathsheba, more likely than not, she knew the law. So I don't know what the deal is there. Because according to the law, both of them, her and Dawid, supposed to die. Unless, you understand, it just wasn't said that Bathsheba was Uriah's betrothed or wife. Because according to the law, betrothed or wife, you understand what I mean? And Dawid didn't take her in the field. We know that. He called her to his house, and he took her. More likely he raped her. But still, she's supposed to cry out. We know the servants didn't hear anything or weren't knowledgeable, because when you go to 2 Samuel chapter 12, the way Yah responds through Natan to David, right? And matter of fact, when Yah killed the child, the first child Bathsheba and Dawid had, right? The servants didn't know what was happening when Dawid got up, refreshed himself, and said, "Bring me something to eat." They was like, "What's this?" And the way it seems, it really wasn't this thing, because what did y'all say? You did this thing in secret, but I'm going to have these 10 of your wives taken before this son. And it wasn't until basically then that all Israel understood what Dawid had really done. when Absalom took the 10 wives in the sight of the sun, in the sight of everybody, that's when the people really come to understand what David had done. Because whatever you do got to come into the light, good or evil, whoever you are, whoever you think you are. Recompense, revealment. See? So how many wives is too many wives? Because David had, what? He had about 19 sons. From what we can see, he had, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 wives, 16 wives, something like that. Sound like too many to me. Okay? And when we look at our progenitors, basically had one wife, right? At a time, right? We see Isaac was really blessed, one wife, right? We see Jacob, his heart was with Raquel. That's why y'all took Raquel out, because she vacillating back and forth. She took them idols. Leah didn't take no idol. Leah was about the law. But you understand? You understand what I mean? Y'all took her out, didn't allow her to come back with Jacob. Because it looked like she back and forth, back and forth. We see the proverb, right? We're not supposed to meddle with those who's given subject to change. Back and forth, right? Now, when we look at that YHWH chapter 4, right? When we get back, right? When Yah brings his movement back, the Jerusalem movement, and sets it in the midst of its sisters, Ezekiel 16, to be a comfort unto them, that they might be called trees of righteousness, the plan of Yah, because they got to make their decision when that happens, right? That's when they're going to really truly start to understand. But the point being is, it says there, 7 women going to grab hold of one man. We'll supply our own food, our own victuals, and just let us be called by thy name. In other words, let us be thy wife. Okay, so now, did Esau put that in there? Because every woman wants her own house. Now, is this, when we look at YHWH chapter 3, and what does it say in there? For the daughters of Zion's haughtiness, their arrogance, their ego, huh? Y'all's smite them in their head with the scab. He gonna break them down, right? They got to be humbled. Is this when, now I'm coming back to that competitiveness, is this when, you understand, these women who transition over into the dominion of Yah are going to have to come over humbled, where they don't have this competitiveness, where they don't have this egotistical arrogance and pride? Is this when the women are going to understand that they have to get along, that you know, embrace another wife that their husband might have as a sister, not a competitor, not an adversary? They're looking at each other as an aid and a help to one another and servants to Yah. Is that when that happens? Is that what's going to make that come about? Or is that an implant, the 7 wives? I don't know. See, because as I've said, you know, all of you at points, I haven't said it in a while, pointed this out. But this, you know, has come to my mind, you know, in relationship to all of these things that are up in the air that we, you know, even when you apply the law, it's not, you know, something's wrong somewhere. You know, the illuminated Edomite has added something, taken something away. We don't know, right? But something has been done, okay, where we can't actually, you know, make sense out of it when we apply the law to these different areas in the book, situations that have happened, that's talked about in the book. Like I say, the situation with David and Bathsheba, the situation with Adam and Eve, So now, as I said in the past, and I said this here, other week, this is why I've said in the past, it's been ways back there. Those of you who've been plugged in the Y'all Righteous, you might remember I've said this. I know some of you will. Jeremiah chapter 30, right? When y'all said, the nobles shall be of ourselves, and he will cause the governor to approach unto him. For who is this that it has engaged his heart to approach unto Yah? Yah shall bring him near. Well, again, Micah 7 verse 15, like according to the coming out of Egypt, right? Similar, not exact, but similar. And we see it, didn't Yah do this with Moshe? I mean, he had called Moshe to him, you understand, when he first revealed himself to him, right? Moshe didn't want to go, but he had to go, right? And then after they came out of Egypt, Yah brought Moshe near him to him again, a couple of times, right? I mean, more than once, but to reveal about the tabernacle and the priesthood and the Levites and their duties and everything about the tabernacle, inside and out, measurements and everything, and sacrifices, okay? And Yah's he's got to cause this governor to approach unto him, to expand his mind just like he did Moshe, to remove these discrepancies, these controversies, right? To remove the doubt, to make plain, unequivocally plain, right? Because we got to know who the high priest is, got to know who the whites are, got to know who's Zebulun, who Issachar, who's Dan, who's Reuben, who's Gad, right? Who's Naphtali, who's Simeon, you understand what I mean? Benjamin, right? You understand what I mean? Who's Yehuda? Only Yah knows that. Who's the Reubenites? Only Yah knows that. Who's the descendants of Manasseh and Ephraim? Only Yah knows that. I mean, just like we know unequivocally Palestinians basically are Israelites, right? But, who's descended out of Manasseh? Who's descended out of Ephraim? Who's descended out of Naphtali? Gad, Reuben. They up in the land of the Medes, half tribe of Manasseh to this day. First Chronicles chapter 5. Only Yah knows that. And as I've said in the past, I just know Esau is not, he didn't leave everything that's supposed to be in that temple done in that temple. I just know he didn't leave everything in. He didn't mess with too much stuff. But we've got enough to get home. That's why Yah said he's going to cause the governor, you understand, to approach unto him, to give him all of this, just like he did Moshe, right? Because only Yah can set all this stuff in order. So again, how many wives is too many? We see the law of 2 wives, but we don't see a law of 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So when does it get to where you multiplying wives? See? Because again, you understand, if the governor's not supposed to do this, then the other men of Israel aren't supposed to do it either. Think about it. Because again, we see this still to this day, don't we? These men, Israelites in these sports or entertainment world, you understand, or business where they get a lot of money, or get what they think is a lot of money, right? Multiply silver and gold. We know they don't really fool with silver and gold per se, right? They got the paper, and first thing they do, they want to get a bunch of women. They want to get a bunch of vehicles, especially these guys is in the entertainment world. You know what I mean? They get out 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20 vehicles. You know what I mean? 2, 3, 4 houses. You know what I'm saying? A lot of them then ended up broke. Okay? But they get a lot of women. They deal with a lot of women, right? And then next thing you see, you know, they whacked out. They all messed up. Okay, so you know, that's what happened with Dawid, is it not? Woman messed him up per se. The women, right? He got weak. Now, when we look at this in Yeshaya chapter 3, what does it say? Children are thy oppressors, and women rule over thee, right? Which is, again, we see there, as I mentioned earlier, it talks about the daughters of Zion for their haughtiness, arrogance, ego, right? So Yah is in the process of humbling them, you know, making their hair fall out, got a wrench, a stench, you know what I'm saying, to whatever degree, right? Possibly from all of the junk they use on themselves trying to be beautiful, what they perceive as beautiful anyway, right? You know what I mean? Uh, you know, I'm over here in chapter 3, Yeshaya, right? I'm picking up at uh, verse 11. Woe unto the wicked, it shall be ill with him, for the reward of his hand shall be given him. See, recompense, right? Always. Right? Verse 12, as for my people, children are their oppressors, and women rule over them. O my people, they which lead thee cause thee to err, and destroy the way of thy paths. Now, okay, let me just read that next line. Yah stands up to plead and stands to judge the people. This is what he's doing with the people of the world right now. Okay, because we're seeing economic collapse, environmental, ecological collapse throughout the earth. See, and this is, you know, what the West, you understand, is doing through this with this Ukraine situation. They're encroaching upon Russian territory. That's what they're doing, and Russia's not going to allow it. This hasn't just started. Like I said, you know, they've been doing this for a long time now, building these bases. You know, United States, NATO, setting up bases. You know, trying to encircle Russia. And Russia's not going to allow it. Putin told them way back, I'm not going to allow you to set up no NATO base in the Ukraine. It ain't happening. So you can forget about it. Like I said, Esau put the Edomite of the West, put the Edomite, you know, in the Ukrainian presidency back then in 2014. When the president they had been, you know, duly elected by the people. And they caused the coup, the West did, and put their Edomite, you know, in his place. This Zelensky. Used to be in the entertainment world. Okay. You know, just like they tried to do with this Guaido in Venezuela. That didn't work, right? So you understand? Now they want to call, you know, Putin the Hitler and all this nonsense with their propaganda machine at work, right? But as some of these analysts say, you understand, you know, that's why they didn't stop RT in some of these, you know, nations like Finland and Poland. They can't get RT. Pardon me, they didn't block them out. Blocked RT out. Okay? And they might try to do it off the internet here because they don't want you to get, you know, the other view of what's going on. Just like with the pandemic. You know, you can't have your thoughts on taking a shot or not, or wearing a mask or not. You know, it's their way or the highway, right? You know, man. Nobody else can have a thought but the powers that be that, you know, controlling the news media and controlling all forms of media per se except the internet. So they pound you with their propaganda to make you, you know, do their best to make you think the way they want you to think. See? Right? You know, like Muhammad Ali told him back there in the 60s, you know, I'm free to think the way I want to think. I ain't got to do what you want me to do. I can be what I want to be and think the way I want to think. But they don't want you to be like that. Okay? See, that's when they was down on Ali, you know what I mean, calling him a pariah. Right? Like I said, they only brought him back in 1970 because he wasn't saying nothing new. You understand? They didn't got rid of the one who was, you know, really bringing, you know, illumination to a degree to Ali, and that was Malcolm X. They got rid of him in 65. That's why, again, as I said in the past, you know, if you look at this Ken Burns thing he did on Ali, and this is after the 80, what did Ali say? You understand? One of the greatest mistakes I ever made was turning my back on Malcolm X, because everything he told me ended up being true. And again, they got a little thing that they've been showing about Ali, you understand what I mean? And they got Farrakhan, you know, where they go to him and he's talking, you understand? But you know, Ali didn't have nothing for Farrakhan. That's shown because Ali planned out his funeral. And if you looked at it, when Ali, you know, when he transitioned and they had his funeral, he didn't have Farrakhan to speak at all. That lets you know where Farrakhan, what he thought about Farrakhan. See, I told you, I saw Farrakhan. He was there. He was like he was asleep. But Ali didn't have him. He had who he wanted to speak at his funeral, and it wasn't Farrakhan, and it wasn't Jesse Jackson. Follow what I'm saying? So you got to look at those things, you know. So when they, you know, this thing I just saw, the trials of Muhammad Ali, they got Farrakhan. That came out, I think it was 2014, and they got pieces of Farrakhan talking. You understand? Ali wasn't associated with him. Follow me? Got to take all that in perspective, see, so that you can get past the propaganda, the nonsense. See, just like I'm saying, how many wives is too many, right? We see what happened with Dawit. We see these people today. You understand? Many these, like I say, entertainers. You know what I mean? Some kind of way they dealing with multiple women, because the women flock to these men who what in the public eye, right? Who look like they've got, you know, money, who got things. You see what I'm saying? Who are illuminated to them. They flock to them. That's what happened to Ali, right? He even said that's one of his main problems. You understand, dealing with these women. He wasn't strong enough to, you know, to keep them back. He wasn't focused enough, right? Again, that's why Moshe sent, Zipporah and the two sons back, because I got to be focused, because I'm doing the work of Yah. I can't have no drama around me. So you go back to your father. When y'all bring us out, then you have to bring you back. And that's what happened. And then the drama started again. We see it culminate in Numbers chapter 12. Right? That's when Yah made Miriam a leper for a whole week. Like I said, when after that week he took that leprosy off of her, you don't see her opening her mouth again. Only thing, next time you see her, she transitioning. Y'all taking her out. See? And again, when you look at this, Yeshaya chapter 3, and it says, women rule over man, when you first hear that, your mind generally goes to a woman, you know, telling the man what to do. That's generally where your mind first goes, right? The woman telling the man what to do. And we know we got houses and we got, you know, women who like this and men who like this, you know, where they submissive to their woman. The woman tell them what to do, right? Running the house. I pointed that out with, you understand, when Nehemiah came back, you follow what I'm saying? That's denoted over there in the book of Nehemiah, chapter 13. He came back, right? And to the second and last time, he governed over Jerusalem. And when he comes back, right, he see these children playing. He know these is Israelite children, but when he talked to them, they can't understand what he's saying, because they speaking in the tongue of their mother. Right? Because you got the Israelite men of Yehuda, right? You follow what I'm saying? Benjamin, you know, they didn't marry these women of other nationalities who's not about Yah at all, raised in idolatry. Right? That's Nehemiah chapter 13. And the children couldn't speak in the Israelite language, so who running the house? It ain't the man. He got to learn the language of his wife to communicate with his child. Right? But the deal is, if you've got men who every woman they see that look good to them, they want them. Isn't that women ruling over the man too? Think about it. Because you got men out here, man, nice looking woman, man, he talking to her. See another like he talking to her. He want her. He want this one. He want that one. And if he got enough income, he can maybe fool, where he can, you understand, fool with 3 or 4 or 5 of them. You understand? Because I mean, he got some money, he got some things, right? And he look good to it, so they, and he might be kind of known and this and that, so they gravitate to him. They want to deal with him. He's got that kind of personality, that charisma. And so he wants, it's like being, like a little boy in a candy shop. You see all this candy, you want to taste this one, want to taste that one. You want to check this one here, you want to check that one there, right? Pretty soon you got a stomach ache, you sick. You understand? So isn't that a man ruling over, a woman ruling, or women ruling over a man in that way? And we see a lot of that, don't we? Man got all these women. He's weakened. Weakened. Isn't that what Bathsheba is saying to Solomon in the 31st proverb? Isn't that what Solomon writes about over there in Proverbs? Was that chapter 5, chapter 6? About the strange women? And any woman is strange that's not about Yah. Now, again, these women who are about Yah right now, they still not where they going to be. Like I said, this competitiveness, this pride, this, ego, right? Could it be this my man? I'm going to hold on to him. I don't want no other woman getting to him. Okay? Rather than these women, coming to where they humble and going to work together. Because even if it's 2, and we see the law 2 wide, they got to work together. Can't be no acrimony and egotism that we saw with Raquel, and Leah, even though they was 2 sibling sisters, which again is a law about that, right? But we do see this again with Hagar and Sarai, Hagar got out of pocket. If she had known her place and worked with Sarai, I'm sure this was Sarai's mommaid, it would have worked. But she got out of pocket. Now she thinking you understand, because she hadn't had a child, Sarai hadn't, and she over her. Competitiveness. See? So think about it. Okay?